Hey, welcome to GameLayer, where we explore the science of play and the quest of learning. I am your host, David Kolmer. Theme music by Caleb Willits. Welcome down to GameLayer.
I play the piano.
I play chess.
I play everything.
I play games of my own invention.
Today's guest is Mr. Paul Smith, located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I met Paul recently in 2025 at the Gamification conference put on by Sententia. It was interesting. I was in a breakout session and we were discussing successful attempts at gamifying a learning environment. And Paul was in the room. He was speaking quietly. He had an avatar, which was a cartoon character in the theme of the conference, which was steampunk, and he was wearing a bandana. It was covering his face. So right from the start, Paul was a very intriguing person, right? A person of mystery even. And then I started asking if anyone had had a positive experience, and then Paul spoke up. He shared a very thorough case study on how he had gamified a learning environment for compliance training, of all things. And so I reached out to Paul near the end of the conference and asked if he wanted to be on this podcast that I hadn't created yet. And he said, sure, that sounds like a fantastic idea. What do I need to do? Join me in welcoming Paul Smith down to GameLayer. I'd like to thank you so much for making time to join the show, Paul.
You're welcome, Dave.
So would you like to go ahead and just introduce yourself? Let us know where you're at and what you're involved in these days.
Yeah, of course. So I work for a company called AtkinsRéalis, based here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I'm originally from Scotland, from Edinburgh, you could tell from the accent. And I've been with this company for coming into my 7th year. I was working in the integrity department for 5 years, building training there and communications. And more recently, I work in the US market. Before, I don't know how far back you want me to go.
It's whatever you're willing to share.
I've done a lot of things.
Yeah, a lot of us have in learning and development, right?
Yes. I have a master's in mental philosophy from Edinburgh University.
Oh, wow.
I moved to Canada over 20 years ago and working in kitchens and teaching English. And I was a director of studies at a language school for a while. So I've been in adult education for a long time, and more recently, I've been pegged as the guy at the company who knows about making training effective.
All right.
I'm the gamification guy. I'm as much of a gamification learner as anyone else.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are.
It's a moving target, right? Yeah.
It really is. And it's an interesting industry because I think it's so tech heavy and it kind of keeps it on the forefront a little bit, probably because the gaming industry is moving so quickly, right?
Sure. What was interesting about the conference that we met at recently?
Yeah, sure. We met at the Gamification conference by Sententia.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It
really was.
It was a solid 48 hours. I'm still digesting a lot of the content.
Yeah. I would get up at 2 a.m. and watch something, right?
Oh gosh,
it was a fantastic experience.
The throwdown competition where I think they had 12 entries of people submitting these 5-minute YouTube videos just explaining their little gamified project or what they had done was really interesting because it gave us a chance to look at gamification from lots of different angles. And
right.
One of them was some safety training, which was, I think they had turned into basketball.
Okay, I missed that one.
Okay, yeah, it looked fun. It's all the same, safety policies and everything that is normally presented in some boring slideshow. But instead, they just put people in teams, made a quiz out of it, and then if you got points, you got to shoot this tiny little plastic basketball. And then they made a round-robin tournament out of it or something.
That's so fun.
And I was talking to some of the health and safety people here where I work, and they're saying, yeah, they used to do safety rodeos where they'd have time trials for putting on harnesses and things like that. It just makes you think, gamification's been around for a long time. It's not all about creating, beautiful branching narrative games.
Correct.
And that kind of, or every story, everything is turned into a story where you have to kind of save some galaxy. No, it's actually just about creating an interest and getting to the end and a kind of incentive around learning.
Yes.
And if you really want to know how people create an incentive around learning, look at the health and safety folks where it's literally a matter of life and death. They have figured out a long time ago how to make training stick, you know?
Yeah, great. Now I want to talk about that health and safety a bit more later. That sounds like a good thing to dig into deep. Which Bartle player type are you? Are you the achiever, the explorer, the socializer, or when you play games, are you more the killer?
I'm not familiar with these terms, Dave. What is this game?
Did any of them resonate with you? So it's a taxonomy of the different types of players.
Okay.
So it's a quadrant. So do you achieve? Do you want to explore? Are you interested in socializing while you play games? Or are you more out to just win?
That's interesting. Definitely not out to win. No, that's always the last place for me.
Yeah, me either.
Socializing is up there. I do see
Okay.
games as it's a really important bonding element in my family and in my circle of
Very
friends.
nice. Uh-huh.
And explorer, I would say. I think it's always interesting to look ahead and see how games are unfolding and
Yes.
a little peek into somebody's imagination. That's fascinating, right?
Well, that's why we get along, I think, because I'm also an explorer. Just wanted to ask that because it's an interesting way to kind of gamify the quadrant of personality styles, right?
Yeah.
And I like how Bartle went out and did that for us. So I'd like to kind of pivot a little bit now and just dial it back a little bit more. You've talked a lot about gamification already, but what about games? How would you define games? Or what does the word games mean to you? And why do you think that we love them so much?
Oh gosh, big question.
It is.
Yeah.
And take your time.
I'll have to. I suppose I just think about the act of play and playing as a bonding experience and as a way of learning. You know, I have a young family and I
Okay.
play games with my kids
Yeah.
all the time, right?
Mhm.
It's as much fun for me as it is for them. We had spoken previously. I think I told you about some games of my own invention you were curious about.
Yes. That would be great.
So this, I think, is a good example.
Okay.
I have a twin brother. He lives in Finland.
Oh, wow.
He has a young boy. I guess this would be about 3 or 4 years ago. He was my nephew was about 6 or 7 years old, and together, my brother and my nephew, they would sit down and make games, and they used snakes and ladders as an inspiration, right? So they would make their own versions of snakes and ladders.
I think we call that chutes and ladders, or I could be completely off on this.
Yeah, probably.
What's snakes and ladders? Could you maybe just define that? Because you already lost.
Yeah, you go down the snakes and you go up the ladders. Yeah,
The snakes bite you. It's like a European version of chutes and ladders.
Yeah, I don't know. You slide down the snakes, I suppose.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah. So I think
Okay.
it's the same game we're talking about. Yeah.
Is
So
it?
it's a
Okay.
very simple
Okay, thank
child's
you.
board game. But they
Fantastic.
kind of they sort of reinvented it and had fun with it. So they would have things like wormholes, where if you land
Oh,
on
wow.
this square, it was one of 6 squares where you could pop out anywhere on the board, right? So then you'd roll the die, and whatever that number was, you had sort of transported to that square.
Nice.
Lots of wee elements like that they built.
Well, they modified it.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's fun.
Anyway, my brother Chris, had this problem where Scotland had qualified for a soccer tournament. He was really excited about it,
Okay.
but his son doesn't care about soccer. Absolutely doesn't care.
I can identify with that just a little
Yes.
bit. Yeah. Okay.
So I made a game for him.
Nice.
I turned Snakes and Ladders into a soccer match. So 90 squares to represent 90 minutes, and you'd start off with 2 dice, and if you got a yellow card, you would lose 1. There was a little soccer pitch at the bottom, and certain squares you land on, you would move back and forth, and if you got near the goal, you'd have a chance to score. There was free kicks and penalties, and it was a lot of, you're just playing soccer with somebody, right? A lot of chance, obviously.
Sure.
And they really liked it. It was really fun. And then a couple of years later, my own son would have been 5 at the time. He's kind of into soccer, but he's really into rugby, and because he's obsessed with rugby. And I made him a version of that, rugby snakes and ladders, where you.
So how are the games different? How was like the football soccer version different than the rugby version?
A similar concept. They were different in, I suppose, the ways that soccer and rugby are different. Different point scoring.
Sure.
You can score tries,
Okay.
penalties, drop goals, things like that. Rugby's a
Very
much
good.
more exciting game, though. Soccer matches regularly end
Okay.
0-0 or 1-0. Right? It's kind of boring.
Okay.
The rugby matches have a lot of scoring. It's a bit like your American football, right? It's all action, you know?
Yeah, I'm familiar with rugby, but not the specifics of how points are awarded or any of that. Just that it's a little bit more aggressive, right? It's a bit more
Yeah,
wild.
it is. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Shake hands at the end. I suppose the act of creating that, it was time consuming, but that's a kind of love language for me, right? Like I'm taking time and thinking about this and crafting this and drawing lines on a bit of paper and little rugby balls and really considering and testing it and testing it. So that was a lot of effort to present this thing to him. And he loved it. He learned more about rugby. He also added his own elements to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a kind of creativity built in there. And I like that when games allow you to do that.
Yeah.
When games allow you to sort of make up your own rules and take a kind of ownership
Sure.
over the game.
Yeah.
And I would play with him and he would play with his granddad and
Yeah.
he'd try to play with his mum. She doesn't care. She would humor him sometimes. But that was a fun... She doesn't care about rugby.
She's not a gamer like that.
But that was a fun bonding experience for me as well. And then there's a bunch of different things happening in there.
Yeah.
And it's also a chance for me to teach him how to win and how to lose. I mean, the behaviors around those things. Like so many great life skills come out of it. He would be distraught if he lost. He would, at the beginning, he was 5 years old. He would, cry, throw the board away. I'd be like, it's okay, buddy. Sometimes you lose. We support Scotland. We should know this. And yeah.
Right.
And he did. He learned. And now if he loses, or if he wins or loses, he has the same reaction, shake hands, good game.
Yeah.
And that's a valuable life lesson, right? That's really...
It is.
Yeah.
It's almost the most important
Absolutely.
one, right? You're going to have to deal with failure. Things are going to go wrong, right? It's almost like when we tried to set up this call and I'm trying to get the technology figured out. And there's a learning curve in anything, right?
Yeah.
So,
we've been here for 3 days now trying to get this, but we got it started. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just love the part where you said this was a love language for you. And I just wanted to kind of touch back on that. And then just also the bonding that I'm sensing from this process, right? You're forming these really deep bonds.
Yeah, it's just a nice way to spend
family.
time together. You're not staring at a screen. You're not just, there's nothing passive in there.
Sure.
We're interpreting the game as it's going along, using our imagination together. So there's a lot happening. It's a really fun experience. And he'll remember that, Yeah.
He will. Oh, yeah, he will. Forever.
He's played that thing today. He plays it on his own. He just sits in his room sometimes and plays the game. He'll come and tell me the scores like he'd been watching a real match. I'm like, oh, okay, good buddy.
But I think we can say that was a successful game.
Yeah.
Right? You developed a successful game there. If he's going to play it on his own, and it's a 2-player game, that was a solid win.
Yeah, he'll play both sides. He'll run up to me, Daddy, Ireland beat Wales 38-24. Oh, cool.
That's fantastic. So I like also in this discussion, I've already learned that you sort of ended up in learning and development, or you could almost say that you fell into it, which I think resonates with a lot of us.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think so. It is a common story, isn't it?
I think it is.
I was working in kitchens. I was a chef here in French bistros in Montreal, and I hurt my back. Yeah, quite badly.
Oh, wow.
And my doctor said, no more working in kitchens for you.
Oh, no.
So I thought, okay, what am I going to do? My brother in Finland had recently started teaching English.
Okay.
So I thought, he seems to enjoy that.
Oh, yeah. I did that for 7 years. I love that. That's a good way to get out there.
Yeah, and it was, yeah. So
yeah,
I remember when this was one of the really important bits of advice for any teacher, I think. Well, I remember I called him. Well, I signed up for a crash course with Cambridge University to do the CELTA to teach, to be allowed to teach English.
Sure.
And I called him and I said, would you have any advice for a new teacher? And he said, yeah, actually, I do. He said, when I first started teaching here at this school in Finland, and there was one older teacher who'd been here forever. And he said to me, remember, Chris, if they know how much you care, they won't care how much you know.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, that was the worst piece of advice anyone has ever given me. That guy was an idiot. You have to learn your stuff. don't go into the class thinking, just because I care, this is enough. These kids have paid, and their parents have paid money to send them to learn English. And they probably know a lot more than you do about the grammar.
Right. Yep, probably do.
Yeah, don't skimp on the preparation. Like, know your stuff, you know?
That is really good advice because now
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to the 7 years. I was in Thailand for 7 years teaching English,
Yeah.
fresh out of theater school. So, just kind of acting my way into the whole experience. And that's the exact experience that I had, right? I went in with just kind of
Yeah.
like a bright attitude. We're just going to have fun and I'm going to get to know them. And they're going to care about American culture. I really had to shift my perspective pretty quickly on that.
No, you have to, you're just, sometimes at the beginning teaching English, you're just one or two steps ahead of the class. So you have to learn all of that stuff, all the meta language for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's how they probably learned their first language. So they're familiar with all the terms.
And like you said, they definitely know the grammar because they had to learn it as a second language. So, right? Exactly right.
So yeah, that took me to Spain, to Japan,
Oh, wow.
back to Montreal. Eventually, I was running a language school here in French and English. So I was director of studies for
Oh,
3 years.
fantastic.
And then, from there, it was just a short hop, skip, and a jump to come work for this engineering firm.
Okay.
And they were looking for somebody in the integrity department to work in.
So, what's that mean? What does the integrity department do? Or what was that role like?
I think in a lot of companies, this would be called ethics and compliance, right?
Got you.
Which is in a lot of places under the legal department, and it's more heavily, focused on the compliance part. And in fact, ethics and compliance are sometimes contradictory. Something can be compliant but not ethical.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
so we're not here to talk about that, though, unfortunately. So
yeah, not specifically, but it is an interesting thing that you bring up, right? Because it's definitely training related. And the questions we have around compliance, I could talk about compliance for hours and no one would want to hear about it. It'd be nothing good that I have to say about compliance training, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I think that's a very, very common attitude, and I think it also reflects the standard of compliance training that is, prevalent.
Yeah, well, it's like you said. I mean, it's the laws, right? So it's more difficult to gamify that. I think I know that people do that successfully.
Yeah, well, I did.
The project that you did, was that in the compliance and ethics department, or was that in another department?
No, it was in the integrity department. That's right. So I did successfully.
Well, there we go.
So the company that I worked for about 15 years ago, they were very naughty. And they were mixed up in it. It's no secret. You can Google everything that happened, and we were quite open about it as well.
You're legally allowed to say that, okay?
Yeah. No, we were absolutely caught and punished. Yeah. And the company's changed a lot since then.
Okay.
All the leadership has changed. The name of the company has changed for quite recently, but everything about the company has changed. So when that big scandal happened, they realized, we need to get everybody in the company to certify that they've read and understood the code of conduct. Now, the code of conduct at that time was a long, boring document full of legalese and jargon. What they did was they sent an email to every employee that said, in the body of the email was the text from the code of conduct. So you're scrolling down this email for days.
Oh no, that is not how we use email, right?
And at the bottom, was a button that said, "I have read and understood this email." And you clicked that button and you were done. Now, did anybody read it? I don't think so.
I wouldn't have.
I wouldn't have either, to be honest with you.
No one would have, right?
And so that was our starting point, right? And that was like 10 years before I joined the company, or 15
All
years.
right.
And it sort of evolved and turned into this kind of quiz that you would see where, first of all, the code of conduct evolved. So it became more readable, more, everyday language, less jargon. And they created a training where you would read the code of conduct and you would be asked questions about certain aspects. So there's a chapter about gifts and hospitality policies. There's a chapter about discrimination and harassment, or about bribery and facilitation payments, that kind of thing. So you would read that, and then you would have this quiz, and it would have things like definition matching questions, or there might be a multiple choice, like which of the following things are considered a bribe.
Boo.
And it would be really
Oh,
obvious
no.
stuff, right? Like
Oh, no.
one of them would be like a bag full of cash, and the other one would be like a cup of coffee. And you'd be like, well, it's not a
A
cup.
bribe.
Yeah. A bag marked bribe.
Right.
And people would do it because they had to do it, because we had monitors breathing down our neck, making sure that we had 100%, completion of this certification module.
Sure.
And when I inherited that task, I started to add some storytelling, right? So I would
Okay.
say, like the one that the one that they launched the year that I started, which I didn't write, was framed like a day in the life.
Okay.
So you would, and it would be like you're sitting at your desk, and you would get emails, and you'd have calls, and there would be different elements. Different things would pop up. So somebody's emailing you saying, "Oh, somebody offered me a bribe. What do I do?" And then you would answer, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, this is nice. Like, it's a better way of doing it, but it doesn't really work for most people, because most people in this company, it's an engineering company. People are like down
Okay.
mines, and they're on bridges, and they work at airports and building runways and things like that. They're not all sitting in an office.
Right.
And also, it does kind of look like a typical day at this company is like a non-stop bombardment of ethical dilemmas. It's not what we want to project. So I
Right.
said, let's do a week in the life,
Okay.
and the person can travel, and they can go to different, so they can see different context, different work context, go to a work site, that kind of thing. And I kind of evolved it a little bit like that for a couple of years.
So you're making me think of almost like a gamified. You're working in almost some onboarding training, right? Because they have the week to kind of travel around and see the different sides of the business. Am I close or not so much?
Oh, that's an interesting element. Yeah. So, that wasn't one of the goals, but I did try to include that. So after doing this for a few years, I went to the chief integrity officer, and I said to him, look, I have an idea for the next code of conduct certification. I don't want to ask any questions about the code of conduct. And he said, okay, I trust you.
Nice. Okay.
And then I went to my manager, and I said, can I have 2 days where I'm working, but I'm offline? I basically want to go to the library and stare out the window and, like, make notes and think about things. And she said, I trust you, go for it. So I did all the usual pre-planning, where I surveyed integrity professionals, and I gathered a lot of real life case studies that we based the training off of. And so I had all my topics, and I went to the library, and I stared out the window, and I thought, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And I started drawing maps. And so I created an interactive map in a made up place, in a made up mega project, where you could go around and visit different sites. And actually, all the sites were based on, to your point earlier, were based on real projects that we have. So it was a
Okay.
way for employees to see what we do as a company, because we do
Yeah.
so many different things.
So this
Nobody
is
knows everything we do.
right, and this is the second time I've heard this story. Right, we met at GameCon, and I kind of want to tap
Yeah.
in on that experience where we were in a breakout room, and you just started telling this long tale of a successful implementation of gamification. And then I think at that point I just kind of stopped looking at the questions we had for the session. I was like, "Hey guys, let's stop talking. Let's listen to this guy. He actually did this, and it worked."
That's right. And that was what the topic was. Yeah. How do you do this? And I said, that was my case. Yeah.
It sounds like you're kind of past analysis, right? And you've analyzed it by entering the role and analyzed what's going on, and now you're starting to design. Is that accurate, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
guess it's rethinking the training as well, right? So
All right.
instead of asking employees to read and memorize this code of conduct, what I said was, let's make the code of conduct a character in the story. So you go into a situation where, and this is a branching narrative, right? So you can go anywhere, anytime, and everybody's story is unique. So you go into a situation where you're speaking to a manager and a client and they're looking to you for some advice and there's something shady that might go down. And before you make a decision, you have to get the opinion of the manager and they'll say, I'm not sure about this. The client, and they tell you what their priority is. As long as this project is finished on time, I don't care how you do it, something like that.
Nice.
But then you also have to look at the code of conduct. What does the code of conduct say? Right. So, and then after you're forced to look at all of these, get the opinions of all these characters, then you have to make a decision. And if you make the wrong decision, then there's no finger wagging. There's not like an alarm bell or something and like, oh, you're losing points. What happens is on the next screen, you reflect and change your mind, basically. So, and then you carry on. But there's a little bit more information. So that was a kind of shift in perspective that allowed that to work, where the employees who were forced to do this were now learning, practicing, building that instinct to not memorize a code of conduct, but actually to think of, if something happens, I'm not sure what to do, I know where to look. And so that's what we wanted to do. That was the main idea behind it. And so that comes back to just the objective, right? What's the objective of this training? It's not to change
The code of
behavior.
conduct.
It's to tell people what this thing is and where to find it and what's in it.
And maybe practice looking it up, right? Or practice using it.
Yeah. And so if anything happens, they know where to go. They know, what to do about it.
So how did you connect the map that you drew to these activities that they had to do? How did that all fit together?
Oh, yeah. So the cases that we had in there were based on real life cases, actual things that had happened. So I would get from the compliance and the HR investigations teams, they would give me redacted versions of cases that they had worked on for the previous 12 months. So I didn't know the names or locations, and I would either combine them or I would change some of the details, and I'd have to get the main message across. Say it's a very specific risk that in certain locations there you could find examples of modern slavery.
Okay.
So I would, if that in the poll that I did, if that came up as one of the top subjects, the integrity subject matter experts told me this is a real risk. We were bidding on, and I think we worked on the Qatar World Cup, where this is really like, I don't know if you read those articles in the Guardian at the time about all the human trafficking and modern slavery that was going on there. This is really in the news a lot. So I put that into the airport. It was just like, the map was just like this island, or it's like a series of islands. There's a bridge, there's an airport, there's a mine, there's a head office, and wherever you go, there was something related to that location that would bring to life one of our actual integrity. It's a risk-based approach. So one of the risks that we have as a company.
So that makes sense. You're having a geographical location, and as you move through the map, there's different risks that populate, and then you either make a decision that's right or wrong. And if it's right, I guess you celebrate, and if it's wrong, you get an opportunity to rethink your approach.
Yes, there you go. And in every location, you would have the opportunity to pick up an item.
Oh, okay.
And you have a bag with you. But the bag only contains enough space for 2 items.
Interesting.
So the first 2 places that you go to, you pick up the item, no problem. But then every place that you visit thereafter, and remember, everyone's going to go to these places in a different order. Okay. Then you have to decide, do I take this? And if I do, which item in my bag am I going to discard?
What was the purpose of the items? Like, what were they and what could you do with them?
So this is a kind of mystery box element.
Nice.
You didn't know, actually.
Oh, wow.
So they appeared organically, right? So when you're in the head office, you're talking to an integrity officer, and at the end of the conversation, they would say to you, "Oh, hey, by the way, I accidentally printed 2 hard copies of our code of conduct. I hate wasting paper. Do you want one of them?" And so you'd have to make that decision. Do I put it in my bag, and then I have to discard one of the things in my bag, or do I say no, thank you? When you're at the airport, after you've dealt with all of the whatever ethical dilemma it was there, on your way out of the airport, you stop and buy some lunch, and then when you're paying for it at the cash, the person says to you, "Hey, you're our 100th customer today. You win a box of these, delicious local sweets. So you decide, oh, I'm going to take these sweets. So another thing was you won a gift card for something.
Okay.
There was a windbreaker,
All right.
like a company logoed windbreaker.
Might be useful.
Yeah. And so after you had completed all but one of the locations, you unlocked the final location, which was the port. And you would go to the port, and somebody was going to try to a government official was going to try to solicit a bribe from you. And before saying yes or no or anything like that, you were prompted to choose an item from your bag. And you didn't know what you were going to do with it. So if you chose the code of conduct, if you had taken it and kept it with you, then what you would do is you would stand up and throw the code of conduct on the table and refuse the solicitation for the bribe and say, I suggest you read our code of conduct, sir, and then slam the door on the way out or something like that.
Sure.
If it was the box of chocolates, box of local sweets, whatever it was, then you would stand up, put your jacket on, zip it up, and you'd have the same speech, and you'd say, my values are important to me, we live by our values. And then you would just leave, and you would give the box of chocolates to the receptionist on the way out. She would be thrilled. That was
Okay. You're the windbreaker.
If it was the windbreaker, you would just aggressively zip it up and put it on and make a show of getting ready and leaving. That was it.
I thought you were gonna pull the windbreaker over his head and be like, I don't take bribes.
So that was it. But everybody would get to the end, and they'd have a different ending, right? So what we wanted,
Okay, so there's the branching scenario element,
yeah.
right? Depending on which item you use, it's going to put you down a different path.
And so what we wanted was for the training, the certification to grow arms and legs and take on a life outside of just that, 30 minutes that you spend on your computer. So people would have a conversation about after, what did you pick? What did you have in your bag? What happened when you presented it? And a lot of people had the code of conduct and chose it. But if you didn't, it was, people were interested. What happened with the windbreaker? What did you do with that?
Right. And I think that's what piqued my interest the most when you presented the story the first time is people were out in the hallway or at the water cooler talking about what did you do and what happened?
Yeah. And that's interesting because once people start talking about that kind of training and those games outside of the, just with each other and their colleagues, like you said, by the water cooler or whatever, now they have to retell stories and they have to put things in their own words and they're processing that information in a different way.
Sure.
If they're talking about it, and even if they're just talking about the bag and the gift and the, sleazy government official, they're still processing that whole experience in a different way.
They're re-encoding it into their deeper memory, right? They're forming deeper memories of that knowledge base or that information from the code of conduct.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're basically having to teach it back without realizing they have to teach it back. That's slick.
Yeah, it comes back to what you were saying about teaching. There's no better way to learn something than if you have to teach it, right?
It's true.
If you're teaching, if you have to try to explain something to somebody, that is going to make you think about it in a different way.
Yeah.
How am I explaining this? What are the important points? And what am I getting across?
Yeah, it's like 90% knowledge retention, I think, is what a lot of the research points towards around, because you have to process it. If you're going to get up in front of someone and explain it to them, you're going to want to really, like you said, know your stuff, right? So I'd like to pivot a little bit. You've really talked about how it all works, but I'd like to kind of go back to the development stage of the ADDI model and just talk a little bit more about what tool you used or what this looked like while you were actually building the thing.
So I used a free online tool called Twine, twinery.org.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I've used Twine. I love it.
Yeah, you know it, right. Yeah, I've made some games for my kids as well with that. And
yeah, I really should get back into Twine. I kind of almost forgot that one's out there.
So, I mean, I don't know if your listeners aren't familiar with it, then...
Yeah, please go over. How does it work?
Very simple coding involved in creating a kind of branching narrative, choose your own adventure type game. And the way that it's presented on the screen, it's a nice visual representation to understand, how many branches you have, how many different elements are in there, and you can't have. I mean, think I did the calculations. We had maybe 15 choices to make in the certification, and if we had a traditional branching
All right.
structure, it was something like 6,000 separate stories. But this is regardless of any exposition or anything like that. You'd have to write 6,000
Wow.
slides. So obviously we
Sure.
used a fold back branching narrative where whatever questions, it would branch off and it would always come back to the same point. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have these different sites on this island as well, because that would mean that instead of having one big branching story, it's like you had 6 small stories, and that's a lot less work, right? I think we could do it in about 60 or 70 slides.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Yeah, and to really get nerdy on this and really nerd out, it's making me think of Mega Man. I don't know if you ever played the original Mega Man games on the Nintendo. You familiar with that?
No, tell me.
You'd have like a board, it's like a 9x9 grid, and you would just choose which enemy you want to defeat next. And then you'd go into the game. It'd be like a side scrolling, really similar to Mario, except you always
Uh-huh.
have a gun. And when you beat one of the enemies, you get a new weapon. And you had to kind of know which order to beat the
Right.
enemies in. Because, for example, if you beat the penguin first, you get an ice gun. And then you'll need the ice gun to shoot the chameleon guy. And then, if you know the order, the game's quite easy. But if you don't know the order, the game's nearly impossible, which I'm sure isn't the approach that you went on the foldback. But I think it's the same principle, right? It's that same game mechanic where you kind of move around and there's just different games within the game or different narratives.
Yeah,
maybe.
it's like going into different rooms, or in your Mega Man example, like you go
Okay.
into different levels and then come back to a kind of central space. Yeah, so it's something like that. And so what I did was I was able to build out basically the whole story like that. Now, unfortunately, Twine has no spell checking. So, no.
It does not. Yeah, very bare bones. Yeah.
So there's a lot of, typos and things to pick up on there. A lot of validation work goes into it.
Sure.
But I was working with a programmer, my colleague Catherine here in Montreal, who was able to turn my ideas into an actual playable game using the platform Captivate.
Aha. Yeah.
Have you used it?
Yeah. So Captivate's more of an e-learning development, right? Really similar to like an articulate storyline, I would say.
Yeah.
There's kind of been this back and forth throughout history of do you pick Captivate or do you pick articulate storyline?
We used Captivate. We had the license for Captivate. That's what she was using. And
okay. I'm sorry for your loss.
I'm like, this is like quite heavy coding for me. I wasn't able to do anything in Captivate. I was just pitching ideas at her, like, no, make it look like this. No, put a lighthouse there. Why? I don't know. We'll need it later. Like I filled it with Easter eggs as well.
Just need-
The whole story.
Lovely. Oh, that's so fun.
Twine was a really useful tool for me to just visually show her what I was talking about, right? So she could see,
Got you.
this is what I want to happen.
So it sounded like Twine was more of the design tool, and then you built it out and Captivate as the development tool.
I went and played a bunch of those kinds of choose your own adventure games that you can download.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, just to see, what do I like, what do I not like, what do I think works, what doesn't work. Some of them are really cartoonish, right? Like there's that Demi Lovato one where you basically carve out a career as an international pop star. But it's really cartoonish. It's not the tone we want to strike with
probably not. Yeah.
Bribery and facilitation payments and extortion and things. And then there are other ones that were there's one that was called like Murder on a Boat or something. I can't remember. But there was this one called Choices That Matter. And what I liked about it was that it was
okay. So that's the one that stood out.
Yeah, and it was monochrome, which I thought, we can do that. We don't need lots of fancy graphics. And so it was really text-based. Like we didn't have any avatars.
Okay.
And what that allowed me to do was to remove any unconscious bias from the game. So it was always a kind of DEI nightmare, like a minefield, to create these games or any story where you'd have a manager, a client, a villain, someone who's trying to be corrupt, a government official, whatever it is, or somebody working at reception. And then you'd have to assign a gender and a skin color and an age and maybe a visible disability to all these people.
Right.
And there's no right answer, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what I did instead was I called everybody by their job title, and I just used gender neutral pronouns. So it was just, okay, so here's the principal engineer.
Nice.
What do they think? That's it.
So I just want to interject. So we viewed people just as people. Maybe where diversity training should end up, right? Just like equity, just like, oh, we're all just humans.
Yeah, that's a nice way to think about it. But what it actually did was it removed my unconscious bias as the author of the game, but it also gave license to anybody playing the game to project their biases, conscious or unconscious, onto it. So if I see the word manager and I think middle-aged white guy, this game is not doing anything to change my
Right.
mind. It's not moving the needle at all in terms of representation.
No, that's also true. That's the other side of it. Right.
When I did it, I was sort of proud of myself, and then I took a step back after it had been launched, and I thought, that was kind of a cop-out. Like, maybe we should have representation in there.
Yeah. I mean, I also liked the way you presented it, though. Maybe that wasn't a learning objective for this project. And bringing such a heavy topic in there, could that have muddied the water?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, that did happen at the start of the game. There is an avatar who represents an integrity officer. It's a made-up integrity officer. Her name was Arwa.
Mhm.
We would always just change between 1 year it would be a man and then a woman, then a man, and we'd just try to be fair about it. Anyway, Arwa had a hijab, but she also had a little bit of neck showing and short sleeves. And a lot of people who played the game were furious with this because that is haram.
Wow. So you just managed to make everyone mad, right? Because there was a hijab. And then also the people who might choose to wear hijabs wouldn't like showing as much skin. Maybe I'm reading way too much into this.
Yeah, I mean, I say a lot. I mean, like maybe like half a dozen people have contacted us to say this is haram, this would never happen.
Okay.
And in fact, and it was all men who said that a woman would never do this.
Interesting.
And they were wrong, in fact, because in some cultures that is okay. In Malaysia, Muslim women do wear hijabs and have short sleeves. There you go.
I've been there. I saw that. I can agree with you on that. Yes, I traveled through.
Yeah, but if you're from another country where it doesn't happen, then you might think that this is offensive. Now, rather than fight it or try to justify it, what we said was, do you know what? That was wrong. It was a mistake because it has, like you said, it's distracted from the objective of the game. Like, this isn't supposed to be about hijabs. It's supposed to be about doing the right thing. And so what we said was, if we want to include any kind of avatar with, for example, with a visible disability, we need to get somebody with that disability involved in the development stage early so that they can sense check what we're doing.
Oh, and I love that. Let's let the person, let that voice be of the person who has that voice.
Yeah, because you're going to go to a designer and say, can you create for me, an avatar of a guy in a wheelchair? The designer doesn't live their life in a wheelchair, right? So what they do, they could easily, very innocently have some missteps there or create something that could be offensive. So then we would have to say,
yeah, or even just like the way you have the settings on the wheelchair might be, something no one in a wheelchair would ever do just because they don't know that experience.
Exactly. Yeah, it just shows that it looks like a kind of platitude, or we're trying to be inclusive.
Exactly.
We're not really being inclusive, but we want to show that we're being inclusive.
Yeah, and we have a mask, and that should be against the code of conduct. I think it's just a fantastic testament and a really good case study to this whole concept of adding a bit of play into the process of learning. And I'm really excited about the project and just wanted to say congratulations. Really, really happy for you.
Yeah, thank you.
That this all came together. Yeah. Are you still at that company then, it sounds like?
I am, yes, but not in the integrity department anymore. I moved into the business side, and so I work in the US now. So it was a global role in integrity, and then this other position came up, still working in training. So I just a sideways move.
Nice.
I love the integrity department. So if you do the same thing for 5 years, you start to look around. Oh, is there anything else I can do?
I
Yeah.
understand that 100%. Right. It's always nice to make a bit of a move.
So what happened subsequently after we launched that was it actually raised the bar for the training in the whole company.
Nice. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to lead into is what was the outcome? So you went right in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really interesting question. How do you measure the success of ethics and compliance or
Yeah. Yeah, because we've talked about the implementation and now we're just on evaluation, right? So how did you measure it? Or I mean, the fact that people were talking about it, I've already stated, I think, is a huge metric of success.
Yeah, we had in our LMS, in the module page, we had a comments box that just said comments, and then there was a blank space.
Nice.
We didn't ask anybody to fill in any comments in there. We didn't ask anybody any specific questions, but lots of people did put comments. And so because they were kind of not even prompted to write anything in there, these are all 100% organic opinions about the experience of playing this game. And overwhelmingly, people said it was fun, it was interesting, they enjoyed it. Some people like almost sarcastically, like, I actually enjoyed it. Like, normally this is a giant chore, right?
Yeah, that's great.
And that in itself, knowing the mechanics of gamification and how they lead to better retention of knowledge and behavior change, those comments were probably the best gauge of whether or not it was successful. We wanted it to do two things. We wanted it to be engaging and to be fun. And it was, actually. People told us that. We didn't even have to ask them. The other side of it, if you wanted to measure, did we actually change the culture? Are we more ethical? That kind of thing. That's so hard to measure because there's 100, inputs into that. We all,
Right.
yeah,
And that makes sense. And maybe you haven't had a scandal since, right? There hasn't been a big lawsuit.
that's true. We
So
haven't, yeah.
I'm being optimistic here, but I mean, it seems like a metric
Yeah.
of success.
And then one of the unintended
Yeah.
consequences was, as I was saying, that it raised the bar for training in the whole company.
Right. And I love that bit.
So what would fly like 3 or 4 years ago, where you get a training and it's a series of slides that you just have to click through and then multiple choice and then, okay, 30 minutes, you're done. Did you get 80% correct? No, you didn't. Okay, you have to go back and do it again. People would begrudgingly just go through that, right? And they would really fly through it if they could. They would absolutely not learn anything. But now what has happened is that has become toxic to have that kind of training. It has the opposite effect of
And maybe as it
whatever
should be,
it's
right?
intended, because
Right.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. People see this as a giant waste of time. And they understand. It's obviously, I'm not really learning anything from this. Why are you doing this? This is just a checkbox exercise for you, so it's a checkbox exercise for me. And so now all the other departments, health and safety, regulatory compliance, nuclear safety, they're all coming to me and saying, or going to the LMS team and saying, make us a training like the certification. Can we do that? We want more storytelling. We want more gamification. And now we have to figure out how to do that at scale for different people, for different topics. And that's a challenge because,
And that might be a discussion for a different day.
yeah,
Because that's almost like a whole nother can of worms. How are we going to scale this?
yeah,
So it sounds like the program is still in effect, though.
yeah, yeah. In fact, I designed it so that the world that the training was taking place in, we could go back and visit it again.
Nice.
So, like I said, I said stick a lighthouse in the corner there. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but eventually we might come back here. That might be useful.
Yeah.
There's a farm as well. There's other little elements. And so I was asked to develop the ESG training the next year. And ESG is environment, social, and governance.
Thank you.
And yeah, like environmental awareness and
Uh-huh.
discrimination and good governance. Sustainability. It's another word for sustainability. I said, well, let's go back to Fredonia where we had the training, and this time we'll go to the lighthouse and we'll do something there and we'll save the birds and we'll make some choices.
Very nice.
And so we had 3 locations that we went to.
Okay.
Each one represented one of the letters. So I think the lighthouse was environment, and then the head office was governance, and then social was airport. And then in each one, the branch would take you down one of 4 different paths. And when you got to the end, you would get a badge. And so you'd finish with 3 badges out of a possible 12. Does that make sense?
So 3 badges out of a possible 12. So it depended on what you were shooting to get?
Depending on the choices that you made. So you go to the airport and then someone's showing you around and they say, do you want to see where we're building the shops, or do you want to see the runway, or where we're planning to build the training, for the local people, wherever it is. And so you make that decision, and then you go there, and then they say, okay, you interested in this or this, and you make another decision, and then they pitch you a problem and you pitch a solution.
Okay.
And you get a badge for that. So at the airport, there were 4 badges on offer. You could only get one of them. So my idea here was, when you finish the ESG training, you get a Teams background that you can download that displays all 12 badges. And it says, I've completed my ESG training. Ask me about my badges.
Yes.
And so that, again, would allow people to say, what did you do? And then they'd have to, again, put it in their own words, talk about what they did, why they did that. What is that? And there would be badges there that neither of them got.
Right.
And so they'd be like, well, what's that thing? I don't know. So they'd have to imagine it, or they'd ask someone else or whatever, right?
Yeah. So you almost played on the success of the first one and emphasized that element of not knowing parts of it, that unknown outcome aspect, the cause and effect.
Unfortunately, they didn't do it, actually. When I left the integrity department, they did everything, but they didn't do the badges. So that's a shame. So I'll keep that in my back pocket. I'll try to use that somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times we just throw badges into an activity with a multiple choice test and call it gamification. So I'm not personally offended the badges were left out from this narrative, just because it almost is a sore spot.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, the badges had that very specific purpose of bringing the training out into meetings and trying to kickstart that conversation. Badges for the sake of badges, I might be getting a little bit tired.
Yeah, you're right. These badges had a very significant purpose. So, yeah, very, very good use of the badges. Thanks so much for just this lengthy discussion. I really appreciate your time. What is your favorite animal?
My favorite animal? Cat.
Yeah, you like cats. That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you had to nail it down, what would you say is your favorite game?
Chess.
Ah, fantastic. What are the mechanics in chess that make you like that game?
It's not a mechanic, but I love the community around chess.
Okay.
If you've ever been to a chess club, it's nice.
I have.
People are nice. They support each other. They help each other. A win for one is a win for everyone. It's a really good community, a very supportive community. I have an account on chess.com. I always enjoy going in there and playing random people. I think that that's a big part of it for me. I mean, I played chess growing up. I played with my brother and my granddad. He just thrashed us every time. Like, he would never gave us a chance. He never let us win for any reason.
That's how you learn.
That's how I learned. I play with my kids. I like the variety, I suppose. Every game's different. That's the thing about chess. If you want to have fun with it, just go nuts. Like, I do that with my boy. He's only 7. He has actually beat me a couple of times because I'm just like, I'm just going to try something absolutely crazy here. And I think chess allows for a lot of creativity like that. You still there, Dave?
In fact, I was no longer there. I was using a new tool, Adobe Podcast, which I think still is in its infancy stages, and unfortunately, Paul was in the room by himself at this point. Several very short recordings of him asking if I'm there, and I was not. So, thanks to Paul for being such a good sport with me trying to figure out this new application. This is how we learn. Learning through failure. Want to give a very special thank you to Paul Smith from Montreal, Quebec, for joining me on this, my first episode of GameLayer. Thank you, Paul. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and here's to hoping that we can have future episodes, well, in the future. I hope you enjoyed listening to it half as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of GameLayer. This is David Kolmer reminding you to stay present and never postpone joy. You can find transcripts of the show at gamelayer.fm. GAMELAYER.fm. Theme music by Caleb Willits. Thanks for listening. Now go, play.
I play chess.
I play Scrabble.
I play fauteuil. I play everything.
Hide and seek with my kids.
I play the piano.
I play board games.
I play guitar.
I smash it on the pitch.
I play chess.
I play Othello.
I play all the Marios.
I play Success Strategist.
I play Street Fighter.
Final Fantasy.
I play games of my own invention. Games of my own invention. Games of my own invention. Games of my own invention.
There are many ways to play. Going for a walk together, doing nothing together is also playing. Anything that can cultivate your feeling of joy, relaxation, where you feel more recharged after doing that thing, and I think you can consider as something that we play with.